Okay, hello and welcome to your yin class. Today we are going to focus on gentle movement with some myofascial release as well as some yin stretches. We're going to identify different areas of the body and release them through myofascial release, and then come into some yin stretches to help release even further. So it can be really handy to have two myofascial release balls. If you don't have those, it's okay. Tennis balls or lacrosse balls work great. Or if you have like some socks you can roll up into a circular shape, maybe some thicker, like warm winter socks, that can be really nice too. We're going to start with just a little bit of gentle movement though, so I will invite you to grab one of your blankets and fold it up to prop it up underneath your hips so we can elevate our hips above our knees. And then kind of sit in this Sukhasana, easy sit, or a crisscross sit, whatever might feel more comfortable. If this doesn't work for your knees, feel free to sit however does. But I'll invite you to kind of settle into your practice. And we're just going to take our hands and rest them along the sides of the rib. As you do so, soften your shoulders so we're not tense in the upper body. And I want you to just, even if it feels difficult, imagine what it would be like just to breathe into the weight of where your hands are connecting with your body. So normally we breathe, we feel it through the front belly. I want you to imagine what it's like to just breathe into the sides of your body. And let the hands kind of be heavy there on your ribs so you can feel a little bit of tactile connection. So as you inhale, you feel the ribs expand underneath your hands. And as you exhale, a gentle drawing away from the hands. Also kind of like how you would imagine a corset feeling, tightening as you exhale, engaging through those deep abdominal muscles to support the respiratory system. And the breath doesn't have to be rhythmic or counted. Just let your breath be nice and deep, natural, however feels good for you. Maybe even if your space feels safe to do so, closing the eyes to really check inward and this introspective breath work to see how you feel. And take one more breath here, just noticing. And throughout class, I'm going to invite you to keep breathing to this lateral aspect of your body, kind of visualizing your ribs as a venting system, letting air flow in and out, targeting those supportive intercostal muscles in between the ribs. Go ahead and release the hands though, place them towards the kneecaps. And we're going to move through a cat-cow style motion for the spine. So letting your chin fall towards your chest, rounding your spine, pressing your hands into your knees. And then using the hands pressing into the knees to draw your belly button forward, opening through the chest and pulling the chin away from the chest. So you're in more of a cow-like spine. Then again, as you take your next breath, rounding and drawing everything in towards the midline. And on the next breath, opening and expanding and taking up space. But let this really orient for that spinal movement. So notice how that feels throughout the entire back line, from your hips all the way up to the base of your head. So maybe you even really notice that we're getting the neck involved a little bit more on the extension and the flexion. And then see if you can't find like this natural flowing rhythm with your breath and movement. And take one more here. And then allow yourself to come back to neutral. And we're going to move side to side, or the frontal plane. So let your right hand come to the floor as you slowly reach the left arm open, like you're contracting the right side ribs and opening through that left side. And then as you start your next breath, just kind of windshield wiper over to the other side. Let the head move however feels natural. Maybe there's a little rotation, gazing down towards the floor, or maybe the head just stays center. But as you lean one direction, try to anchor the opposite sits bone onto your blanket so you really feel that expansive shape from the hip all the way up to the armpit. It's really mobilizing and moving the entire upper body. And take one more here. And then again, allow yourself to come back to center. And we're going to somewhat seam those together. So again, placing the hands on the legs. Allow the belly to draw forward, shine your chest. But then we're going to move by opening through the left rib cage, contracting that right side. As you move towards the back, round your spine, tucking the chin towards the chest. And then like an accordion, open the right rib cage. And then back towards the front. So you're kind of just moving through this like barrel roll or circular motion. Just trying to create space throughout this thoracic basket, this mid, back, rib cage, and front body. And again, bring some awareness back to that breath, especially as you're opening one side of the rib cage. Can you really breathe into that area? When it feels like a natural place to do so, just change the direction. And slowly come back to center. Let's just do a little check-in. So just as we began, take the hands again towards the ribs. Take a couple of nice deep lateral breaths into the weight of this tactile connection. And notice if the breath maybe feels a little different. Maybe there's more space, it's more expansive, it's deeper. And then slowly release. Whatever you were sitting on, feel free to remove that, set that off to the side. Go ahead and take your 2 myofascial release balls, tennis balls, lacrosse balls, rolled up socks, whatever you have available. If you are using 2 loose balls, mine are not connected, we're going to use just a sock to bring them together so they're like conjoined balls. So go ahead and place the balls into the sock. Let them come all the way to the bottom. And then you'll tie a knot at the top. So we're just making the balls kind of into one unit. If you don't have any balls, no worries. I'll show you an option we can use with your yoga block as well. But I just placed the balls into the sock, tying a knot, so now they're just one piece. From there, go ahead and grab your yoga block, whether you have the balls or not. If you have balls, I'll show you how to get into this first, and if you don't have any, I'll show you with your block here in just a moment. You're going to place the block on the lowest setting with the balls kind of towards the edge of the block. What we're looking to target here is really the top of the neck and where it connects with the head with the balls, so a nice release for the cervical spine. So as you come to lay down, let those 2 balls kind of just frame the base of the skull, one on each side of the neck, as you gently tuck your chin towards your chest. And we're just going to stay here and breathe, again, into this lateral aspect of the body. If you don't have 2 myofascial release balls, go ahead and take your block on its mid setting. And this ridge of the block, so this corner edge of the block, is going to target that same spot. So right where the neck and the base of the head come together. And again, you're just going to allow the weight of the head to compress into your prop. So whatever you've got available, just use the props we have on hand. And if it does help to have the tactile connection for the breath, letting your arms be heavy onto the floor, let the hands again come towards the sides of the ribs. And breathe into the hands. And the invitation to maybe close the eyes and really bring the awareness to your breath. This grounding anchor that can help us to stay truly present. And take another deep breath here. And then whatever props you had underneath the head, I'm going to invite you to, as gently as you can, release them, set them off to the side, and allow yourself to lay completely flat onto the floor. Take a moment to bring your awareness to the base of the head and where it connects with the neck. Maybe there's a tingly sensation or a temperature difference as all the blood recirculates back in. And pause for a moment just to notice. And then we're going to stay laying on our back, so we'll stay supine. If your balls are conjoined in the sock, go ahead and slowly remove those so you can separate them again. So untying your knot. Might have tied mine a little too tight. And we're going to move more into the traps and the back now. So again, if you don't have myofascial release balls, rolled up socks will work perfect here. It might just be a little softer, but that's okay. Sometimes less is more when it comes to releasing the fascia. So you'll have 2 myofascial release balls or 2 rolled up pairs of socks. And we're going to really find the apex of the shoulder. So if you take your right hand and kind of just cup the top of your left shoulder, where your fingertips land, that's where we want to place the ball. So again, just taking a flat hand, kind of cupping the top of your shoulder, where those fingers are, is where we'll want to place the ball. So ball in the right hand, kind of lean towards the right to pick your left shoulder up to place the ball. And then we'll do the same on the other side. A ball in the left hand, kind of roll towards the left and prop that ball underneath. So take a moment, see how this feels for the traps, this connection of your neck and your upper back. And this may be enough. If you're not noticing a whole lot of sensation, it can be really nice to take a yoga block on its lowest setting and slide it underneath your sacrum or your hip region, which will just put a little bit more body weight into the balls to help release a little bit more. Before you do anything else, pause, notice, see how this feels. And then maybe you like to add a little movement by just slowly sweeping the arms overhead and then bringing them back down towards your hips. Sometimes movement can be really nice, but other times staying in stillness can feel really luxurious. Just notice what feels better in your body today and in this moment, and then adjust accordingly. If you were adding gentle movement, I invite you to come into stillness either with the arms down by your side or the arms overhead. And again, still focusing on breathing through the sides of the ribs. Take a couple more breaths here. And if you added a yoga block under your hips, slowly press to the feet, lift your hips up to remove that block. And then reach one hand at a time and remove the balls from underneath of you. We'll come back to those one more time for the low back and the hips, but for now, just set them off to the side. I'm going to invite you to roll onto one side. Either bring a yoga block with you or a blanket with you so you can rest your head onto something. But we're going to continue with the upper body now, moving into the shoulders a little bit. So make sure the head with that cervical spine is in line with the rest of your body by either a yoga block or a blanket. Whichever arm is on bottom. So for me, I'm laying on my left side, so it's my left arm is on the bottom. Go ahead and bend that arm so your fingertips are up towards the sky. We're just going to find a gentle rotation, internal and external through the shoulder. So maybe at first, just doing this without any assistance, let your left hand start to come towards the floor. Keep the upper arm really heavy, so try not to lift any part of the upper arm. And just see how close your palm can get towards the earth. Just take a mental note where that landed, and then we'll take it the other direction. So finding rotation as we bring the back of the palm towards the floor, again, keeping that upper arm bone heavy, not lifting any part of the upper left arm. And just find this really slow, gentle windshield wipering forward and back. Noticing what might come more natural, internal rotation, or maybe it's the external rotation as the arm goes overhead. And we're going to invite in a little bit of proprioception neuromuscular facilitation, which is just a fancy word for PNF, or activating the muscle so it can find a deeper stretch. So the next time you come into that internal rotation, so the palm is towards the floor, go ahead and take your top free hand. So for me, that's my right hand. Place the hand on the back of the left palm and gently press the left hand a little closer to the floor, maybe just 10 or 20% at first. And maybe a little bit more pressure, 30, 40, 50%. Notice with a little bit of resistance, the palm gets a little closer to the floor. There's a little bit more internal rotation. And without changing anything, so don't move your right hand at all. Keep it where it is. See if you can't just pull your left hand away from the right hand. And maybe it doesn't actually leave. Maybe it's just you feel it lightening up a little bit. Maybe you do start to create some space between the hands and you find more range of motion in this internal rotation. And notice how that feels in the shoulder and in the arm. And take one more breath here. And then bring the right hand to meet the left hand where it's at. And we're going to play around with a little resistance. So both arms are going to move. Press your left palm or your left hand into your right palm as you slowly come into external rotation. So it's like they're both resisting each other, but the left arm is winning. And then as you start to come the other direction, the right hand wins as it presses the left hand back towards the floor. We'll do that 2 more rounds. So both arms move. As you come into external rotation, the left arm is winning. And as you come into internal rotation, the right arm is winning. Take one more here. And then release your right hand. Bring your left hand back up where the fingertips are facing the sky. And just find your left hand's internal range of motion. Is it any closer to the floor than it was when we began? It may be even an inch or more closer to the floor than it was when we began. And take a moment to really appreciate the resiliency and the adaptation of the body so quickly when we just mobilize and stretch. And then release the arm and shake it out. We're going to come onto the other side, so feel free just to roll onto the other side. I'm going to actually turn so I don't have my back to you, but you can just roll on over. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So now I'm laying on my right side. Again, make sure the head is in line with the rest of the spine. And then bend your right arm so the fingertips are up towards the sky. And if you're on the other side, no problem. Everything will just be reversed. And for the first couple, just find your active range of motion without any of support. Just noticing this internal, external rotation as we really heavy the upper arm bone and keep it grounded. One side might be more open than the other. You might notice the hand is closer or further from the floor than the other side. And then that next time you have your arm in that internal rotation, so palm facing the floor, bring your left hand, placing it on the back of the right hand. We'll start with just a little bit of pressure, maybe 10%, nothing much. Slowly increase to 20, 30, 40, 50. Feeling this more passive range of motion as we are using another part to support us. And then again, without moving your left hand, keep it exactly where it is. See if you can't start to pull the right hand away from the left. And it's okay if it doesn't leave. Just maybe feel that sensation of what it would be like to pull it away. And take another deep breath here. And then bring the hands back together. And again, both arms will move. But slowly as you come into external rotation, it's like the right hand is winning, pushing into the left hand as they come overhead. And then slowly we switch so the left hand is winning as we come back into internal rotation. And take one more here. And then come back up through center. Go ahead and release your left arm, and one more time come into that internal rotation and just notice if there's any difference. Maybe not visually, but maybe we can feel it was more accessible. And then release and shake that out. Go ahead and set your blanket off to the side for now. Grab your 2 myofascial release balls or rolled up socks, whatever you have, and come back onto your back. This time, knees will be bent, feet flat on the floor. We're going to target the bullseye of the glutes, so the glute max. So taking the balls, you're really going to place them right in the center of your glutes, like the bullseye. So be right around the sit bone region. And then walk your feet out a little bit wider than hips distance and let your knees knock together. So we have a little bit of internal rotation through both hips, but then heavy the hips onto the balls or your props, whatever you're using. And we'll start with just a gentle contraction for release. So bringing the awareness back to the breath. Again, imagine breathing into the lateral space of the body. And then keeping the feet where they are, let the knees come over the feet. So now the hips are more neutral. And find just this gentle rocking of your knees side to side. So you kind of feel the skin or the tissue of the body dragging over the ball side to side, massaging through these glutes. And again, notice where the breath tends to go and see if you can't keep breathing into the sides of the body. And slowly start to bring everything back to center. Go ahead and press through your feet to lift your hips just enough to slide the balls out. Pause, coming back down. Notice again that difference as the circulation starts to come back in. Rehydrating the tissue, bringing in nourishment. And we're going to come into a yin stretch on each side. So go ahead and just roll onto one side of your body and press yourself up to have a seat. We're going to come into shoelace, or a square pose actually. You can do shoelace if you like, but ideally what we're going to be doing is just stacking the shin one on top of the other. So bringing your left leg where the shin is somewhat parallel with your mat, and then stacking that right leg on top. If you have a decent amount of space between your knee and your ankle or your foot, it might be nice to kind of slide a prop under there. Also, if it's too intense to have both legs this way, feel free to extend your bottom leg. Again, just play around, see what feels good in your body. Maybe sitting upright, you notice that sensation of stretch through the outside of the hip, and maybe you stay here. Maybe you slowly start to hinge forward, putting some more body weight. And then you notice that initial stage of the stretch, and we pause and stay here and breathe. Maybe you like to place your arms on the legs, going even more deeply, adding in more body weight. But notice which point you feel that initial stretch in the outside of the hip of the top leg. And then pause there and just take a few deep breaths. Noticing that stretch coming from the glute max, the bullseye of the glutes, wrapping around into the glute med and the glute min through the side of the hip. And take one more breath here. And then slowly, wherever you took your yin stretch, slowly release. Unravel your legs, lean back into your arms, take your feet a little wider than hips distance, and just find this gentle windshield wipering of the knees side to side. Noticing how that feels in the hips. Maybe the hip of the leg we just stretched feels a little bit more open, more mobile, finding a deeper internal and external rotation. And we're going to come into the other side. So the leg that was on top will now be on the bottom, and then the other leg will be on top. As much as we would like to be symmetrical, we are very much asymmetrical. So there might be a difference. Maybe you needed a prop on one side, but you don't need it on the other. And then again, play around, maybe keeping the hands behind you, but hinging the chest forward. Or maybe bringing all of the weight forward. Or maybe you stay seated upright and just find a gentle tucking of the chin towards the chest. And take another deep breath here. And slowly release. And again, take the hands behind you, gently unravel the legs, and find just this gentle windshield wipering side to side. And then slowly release. I'm going to do some release for the legs before we come into our final relaxation shape. So for this one, you'll need your blanket. And we're going to take the long edge and roll it up like a burrito. So creating this kind of blanket bolster. And we're going to come into a prone position, kind of like you would set up for Sphinx, but we're going to allow this roll to be right at the middle of the blanket. And we're going to lay the middle of the upper quadriceps right on this roll that we've just created. So a nice way to get into this is to come into tabletop and then slowly start to walk yourself forward into your Sphinx variation until that bolster finds about mid-thigh. You can stay up on the forearms if that feels nice. It might also be nice to bring the upper body into crocodile pose by stacking the forearms and letting the forehead rest on the forearms. So whether you want to stay in a more lifted prone position or a more reclined prone position. And then all we're going to do here is bend and straighten the legs. So it's kind of like we've created a foam roller per se. We're just releasing the fascia in that superficial layer right beneath the skin for the fronts of the thighs. The next time you bend your legs so the feet are up into the air, pause, and then just gently windshield wiper your feet side to side. So we're hitting all the different aspects of the front of the thigh. And trying to really soften through the rest of the body as well. And then slowly bring your legs back to center and release them long. Wherever you took the arms, walk them out, hands underneath your chest, and push yourself up and back into a child's pose position just for a moment. Check in, notice how the legs feel. And then slowly release and start to set yourself up for your final relaxation shape. One of my favorites is just to have a rolled blanket underneath my neck so my cervical spine can relax. But you might like a bolster underneath the knees, or maybe you even bring the bottom of the feet together and let the knees come out wide like a butterfly shape with some blocks catching the outsides of the thighs. But we're going to finish with an abbreviated version of a body scan for our meditation with a little bit of tension and release. So once you find yourself in your final shape, whatever that may be for you, I want you to start to bring the awareness to the shoulders and the neck. And from here, press the back of the shoulders into the floor. You'll feel your chest expand. You'll feel tension in that back body. Maybe you even start to press the back of the arms into the floor, the back of the hips, the back of the legs, the whole back body, that whole posterior chain engaged and pressing into the floor. The front side of the body feeling lighter and lighter. And then release and soften into the floor. Slowly bring the awareness now to the hands and the fingers. I invite you to maybe clench the fingers and make a fist. Keep tightening and engaging, feeling that transition up into the arms. And then let it go, release your fist. Bringing the awareness to the hips and to the pelvis. And start to feel your sit bones pressing into the earth. Tension through the glutes. Maybe you even feel the legs starting to engage, the fronts of the thighs. And then slowly let it go and soften. And then allow your awareness to settle on the lower legs. And start to flex the feet, driving through the heel like you're trying to bring your toes to your shin bone. Build tension through that bottom portion of the leg. And then exhale, let it go. Soften. And for this last contraction, imagine building tension throughout the entire body from head to toe, making a fist, flexing the feet, pressing the entire back body into the earth. Pause for just a moment. Notice what it feels like to build that tension within the body. And then exhale, let it all go. Feel the entire body surrendering, softening. Let your right leg fall off to the right. Left leg falls off to the left. Let your right arm fall off to the right. Left arm falls off to the left. Let your jaw soften and your tongue heavy. And the muscle between the brows softening. Coming back to the beginning of practice, breathing into the sides of your body. This whole sense of surrender and release. And we'll slowly reinvite movement into the body by wiggling fingers and toes. And there's no rush at all, but whenever you're ready, rolling over onto one side of your body. And then using your arms to gently press yourself up into a seated posture. And for one last time, I'm going to invite you to bring your hands again towards the ribs and breathe into this tactile connection. And notice if the breath has changed any, if it feels more inviting, more spacious, if the whole body feels like it can start to be involved. Maybe feeling a little bit more connected with your body-mind. And hopefully just feeling more open and spacious. Take one more breath here. And on the exhale, releasing the hands, placing them on your heart. Thank you so much for joining me for your yin practice today. From my heart to yours, be well.